Hi, how are you? How are you really? I'm going to give this just a few moments to see who might be joining us live. Welcome. I'd love to know who is here. As you come on, please say hi. Welcome, everybody. Hello, Candace. It's good to see you. I know there are some other people here as well. Hi, Lisa. Welcome. So nice to be here with you. I wanted to come in and do this video today. Hello, Humboldt 5. I think that says welcome. So I wanted to come in and do this video to connect with you because it's been a little while. But also, as I sat in meditation this morning, actually for the first time in a little while, I felt a lot of energy. And I know that that is in part my energy. But part of what I was doing was some distance Reiki. And I felt a lot of energy. And so I thought maybe I would come in today and just create a space, an actual container here for some of that energy that you might be carrying that really might need a space to be held. There's a lot going on, so much going on around us and likely within us as well. Hello. Welcome. So please do say hello as you come on. So today I wanted to, I will probably do a very brief thing to try to center us. But I really just wanted to create a space to be wherever you're at right now, to feel, I can see this hair here, to feel however you're feeling, to whatever that is, whether it doesn't feel so good or whether you're feeling really great today. But a space to just know that however you're feeling, whatever you might be struggling with, we're in this together, in this space right now, whether you're watching this on replay or you're here live. This space that we are creating is a welcoming, safe, supportive place to be. Let's just take a deep breath together. Hi, everybody. So really check in with yourself and ask how you're doing. Check in with your body, check in with your thoughts, check in with your heart rate, tension in your body. What's going on in there? Probably quite a bit. We are 4 months, depending on where you're at in the world, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less, but we are about 4 months into a pretty life-changing experience, whether it's just a lot of inconvenience or incredibly significant differences that are creating different types of stress. Just the stress of uncertainty, the stress of job loss or possible job loss, your health, your safety, relationship issues that are coming up, whether it's because you're confined in space with people or you're missing people and that feels hard. Differences in opinions on how things are going and what should happen. There's a lot that most people are dealing with, and that creates a lot of stress. And when we don't have our usual outlets available to us, whatever that might be, it can create more stress, more vulnerability, more struggle. So right now in this moment, again, even if you're watching this on replay, take a moment. Just let yourself, if you can, close your eyes. Obviously, if you're driving, hopefully you're not watching a video, but if you are in a place where you can, just take a moment and close your eyes and do just a full body scan from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Notice what you feel. Just any sensations, tightness, constriction, expansion. Just notice what is present. Are you breathing shallowly? Just check in with yourself. Taking a few moments to just check in with yourself. It can feel a little unsettled if you notice that you're not breathing very well, or there's pain or some anxiety showing up in your body. But even if you're not acknowledging it consciously, it's still there and it's having an impact on you. When you take a moment to check in with yourself and recognize what is present for you, then you have the ability to move through it, because in that acknowledgement, in that recognition, you are giving it space to show up and potentially be released. But if you're disconnected from it and you're just kind of trying to ignore it, then it creates more energy. So as you're checking in with yourself and just noticing what is present for you, maybe taking a deep breath. And with that breath, notice the light. Notice a warm, bright light moving into those spaces, penetrating any pain that is there, any discomfort, uncertainty. The white, warm light is healing. It's releasing. How have you been taking care of yourself? Are you being conscious about making sure that you're taking care of what you need? Taking care of making sure that you're drinking enough, eating well, or at least not eating really, really horribly. Making sure that you're nourishing your body. What about nourishing your mind, your heart? Are you staying connected with people that matter to you? Are you giving yourself space away from maybe the news of the day, giving yourself space away from people that are maybe not being supportive or are contributing to added stress in your life? It's important to really honor yourself and not get really caught up in all the external stuff, because there's enough going on inside, right? So being able to really recognize the impact that the external world, the people, the things that you're reading or seeing or listening to, being conscious of the impact that that has on you and giving yourself space away from that as needed. Not suggesting that you ignore everything that's going on outside of you, because that's not really healthy either. But definitely being mindful of the impact that it's having on you and making sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you're not getting too overburdened by everything. We still have to deal with the reality of what's going on, but we don't have to be immersed in it 24 hours a day. Giving yourself the space to recognize that there's something that's not feeling good within you, whether it's in your mind, your body, your heart. Giving yourself the space to just recognize that, acknowledge it, goes a long way in helping it not have so much power or energy. But when we try to ignore it, we deny it, we minimize it, we talk ourselves out of it, we're giving it more energy, and it has more impact on our emotional well-being. So it really is important. It's not about being negative. It's not about not being healthy. It's not about not being, or it's not about being depressed, or any of those things. We're human, and humans have a whole range of emotion. There's some that fall on the challenging, difficult, negative spectrum. I don't think feelings are negative specifically. And then there's feelings that fall on the more positive spectrum. But all of them matter. Sure, these feel better, but these exist for a reason. And there's a lot going on where that's creating circumstances that there may be a lot of this going on. And I think that that's true somewhat generally, but especially with everything that's going on right now. There's so many things that we're having to deal with, even if not personally really, really engaged in something. There's just so much happening around us that affects how we feel, because we are energetic beings and we feel things going on around us and within us, even if we work really hard as a way of coping to keep everything away from us. It's still there. So taking some time to acknowledge if you are struggling, if there's something that you need, whether it's time away or time connecting. Maybe you need support around something. Maybe you just need to talk to somebody about things that have nothing to do with what's going on right now. Healthy distraction is a great way to take care of yourself. Healthy distraction means intentional distraction, which is different than distraction as a way of avoiding that comes from an unconscious or subconscious place. Healthy distraction comes from a conscious place, and you're saying, okay, I'm kind of struggling right now. What can I do to help take my mind off of it for a while? Part of the reason why streaming services are doing so well right now, it's a distraction. And when used in a conscious way, it can be a really good distraction. If it's being used in a subconscious or unconscious way, often it is unconscious because you don't know that you're distracting from something. If it's used in an unconscious way, then you're not acknowledging and honoring the reality of what's going on for you. And we need to be able to do that, which is why I wanted to create this space to come together today to do that. So, how are you doing? What is on your mind? What are you struggling with? Please feel free to share. This has been a challenging time, even for me. And I say even for me because I've done a lot of healing and I'm pretty good at acknowledging my feelings and all of that. But the reality is, the longer this goes on, the more stressful, I guess, it becomes in some ways. For me, I have been thinking, okay, this is going on. I'm pretty fortunate that I already work from home. My husband works from home. It hasn't really impacted our lives specifically in really, really significant ways. So it was just a matter of, okay, we can get through this. But the longer it goes on, it's like, how long are we going to have to get through this? And of course, people that I know are struggling, people that I know personally, people that I know in terms of clients, in my role as a mentor. And the longer that we have stress, the more impact that stress has, especially if we're not acknowledging it and honoring it and being really intentional about taking care of ourselves. And that's why it is so important to be able to acknowledge and validate and practice, very intentionally practice self-care whatever that might look like, because what it looks like for one person might be different than what it looks like for another person. One person might need more space alone. Another person might feel like they need more connection. So there's not a right or wrong way. It's just about honoring what you feel that you need. And that can be hard to do at times. And so you have to kind of practice. You have to take moments to check in with yourself and ask, what do I need? What do I want right now? Without judging it, without coming up with reasons why you can't have it or you shouldn't have it or you shouldn't ask for it. It's just about honoring what it is that you want and need. Even if it's not actually possible, you can still acknowledge, I really want this. I really wish I could do this right now, but I can't. And that's okay. It's okay for me to want it. It's okay that I can't have it, but I will be able to have it. Wanting it isn't wrong. Maybe even, is there a way? So if I want to go out and hang out with all my friends or whatever, and you can't do that, is there a way that I might be able to create a circumstance where I can experience or feel some of what that would give to me? Maybe you hop on a virtual video call with your friends and have a meal together, even if you can't be together in person. Because if we just ignore what we want, then we're not available to check in with, is there a way that I could have that desire met, even if it doesn't look the way that I imagine it looking or the way that I'm used to it looking? But we're not going to do that if we're denying or not acknowledging that there's something that we want. So people are sharing. So hello, everybody. All of it is difficult. 2020 has been awful so far. It has been quite the year. I've shared this before, but really, for me, again, nothing really bad, but literally from the very beginning of the year, the first week of the year, it has been stress, 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 stress. Some of it good stress, but still a lot of stress. And I think that's important, what I just said about good stress. Even good stress, like so stress that comes from a new endeavor that you're excited about, good things that are happening in your life, it still can create stress. And stress, the impact of stress on your body, on your mind, especially if you're not conscious of how it's showing up, can have a negative impact. So when you think about all the different kinds of stressors going on in our lives right now that are not coming from a positive place, it is having an impact on us, whether we're consciously aware or not. And that's part of the reason I want everybody to be able to recognize and check in with themselves to really see how they're doing. Right now, I'm struggling the most with letting myself feel things and let the feelings go versus letting them pile up. I've always allowed things to pile, so I'm not even sure how to just let it flow. So part of that is what I was just referring to. Even if you don't know exactly what you're feeling, and I think that this is important as well, we often aren't really sure exactly what we're feeling. We just feel some energy that maybe doesn't feel so great. And that's okay. We don't have to be able to actually name the specific feeling. I think there can be some benefit to that in some circumstances. But I think for this purpose, what I'm talking about right now, it really isn't so much about having to be able to name a specific feeling. It's more about acknowledging, I'm feeling stressed, I'm struggling, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling irritable, I'm feeling lonely, anxious, whatever it is. Being able to just even acknowledge that, and I know I said some specific terms there, but being able to just acknowledge, I'm not feeling great. I'm not feeling very motivated. I'm not feeling very interested in engaging or whatever it is, even just being able to acknowledge that is a way to validate how you're feeling. It's a way to honor that you're not feeling so great instead of trying to pretend that you are or denying that you're not. And that really can go a long way. And the more you're able to just kind of do that without judgment, without trying to talk yourself out of it, whatever you're feeling can begin to move through you. If you know what you're feeling, being able to acknowledge, honor, and validate that specifically can also be really helpful. Because what we tend to do so often is talk ourselves out of it. Oh, it's not that bad. A lot of people have it worse. Or I shouldn't be struggling. There's so much to be grateful for right now. I need to look at the positive things that are going on. So we talk ourselves out of what is present for us. And if you think about it, generally speaking, we wouldn't really do that to children, right? At least, hopefully, we're not really doing that to children because they feel how they feel, right? And we can acknowledge that they're feeling sad about something without telling them that they shouldn't feel that way. But when we do that to ourselves, that's really what we're doing. We're telling ourselves that we shouldn't, that we don't have a right, that we're being weak or selfish or whatever it is that we may be saying to ourselves. So meeting that feeling or that understanding that you're struggling with something, meeting that with self-compassion can help in whatever that feeling is, whatever that experience is. It can help with letting that flow, letting it move instead of feeling so stagnant inside. I'm a public kindergarten teacher, so yeah, just tired of it all. The isolation, the loneliness, the anger, the pressure to get out more, the unknown, and fear of my family's safety. With the new school year here, at least in the US, and I think many places abroad as well, with the new school year approaching, a lot of teachers are really feeling a lot of different things, and some are feeling conflicted because some want to go back to the classroom, but yet are afraid to go back to the classroom for themselves or for their students, for their own families. It's a lot right now, and the reality is there's a lot of information out there that is conflicting, even from doctors, that's somewhat conflicting. And I think that makes it a lot harder to be able to trust what the right or the best thing is. So I am hearing from a lot of teachers about fear, frustration, as we approach this school year and what ultimately is going to end up happening. So you're not alone. You're definitely not alone in that. I just can't imagine. I don't have young children, and I feel grateful. I felt grateful for that this whole time, because whether it was trying to homeschool or the decision about what you would do now with your children, if that was something else that I was trying to think about right now, it would definitely make everything much more difficult. So standing with you in all of that. Yes, I do. I don't often use the term specifically, but I talk about all of that. Thank you. Trying to find online work so I don't have to step into a classroom this year. My district has told high-risk teachers to resign if they have an issue going back in. That is, that just definitely is not, I don't know what the answer is, but that definitely does not seem helpful. It's certainly not, I don't think, a very thought out decision. I don't think that it's realistic either. If they end up having a lot of teachers resign, then who's going to be teaching those kids that they're forcing back into a classroom? I mean, I don't know that it's really that thought out. And I think that that's part of the difficulty, is that there's just so much that is unknown that it is hard to, with any certainty, really be able to formulate, in terms of reintegrating and everything. How are we going to do that? So I hope that you're able to find a way to continuing doing the work that you want to do, while also being able to stay safe and healthy. Yeah, and every school, and that's part of the challenge too, is that every district, it seems, can kind of make up their own mind about what they want to do, how they want to move forward. And I'm not a teacher, I'm not an administrator in a public education system, so my opinions come from just personal reflections. But it seems just having every district kind of come up with their own thing is also a little bit challenging. Not having a more standard idea that has been really thought out, I think, does not help, certainly with stress, nor is it likely going to help a whole lot in terms of the outcome that we end up experiencing as a result. It's hard to find a support team who will allow you to stay in the feelings. So many people just want you to be positive all the time. That is so true. That is absolutely true. And what I would say about that is, so generally speaking, I think that people who want you to be in a positive place all the time, generally speaking, I think it typically comes from a good place, but it also comes from a place of ignorance. And I don't mean any judgment in that, but it comes from a place of a lack of understanding, which is really what ignorance is. But it comes from a place of not understanding what that really ultimately means. Because when you do that, you're minimizing, you're denying the reality of what's going on. And we have spent far too long in our history denying the reality of what people, humans, tend to feel. That there's a whole range of emotions. We have been taught that these emotions are not okay, these feelings are not okay. If you feel any of these, you just have to buck up, get a backbone, get stronger, think positively. That's not helpful. It really isn't helpful. But when there are people in your life who are saying that, it can come from a good place, because a lot of people believe that that's how you're supposed to feel better. That is not the reality of human emotion, of psychology, even. If it's used as a form of denying what is real and present for you. So trying to not take that personally is one piece. But the other thing is, maybe those just aren't your people to be supported by. Maybe they can be your people in other ways, for other, in other circumstances, but those aren't your people to be supported by. So, and that's true for most of us. I think a lot of us have people in our lives that wouldn't necessarily go to talk to about certain things, but they might be the first people that we go to for something else. And part of being healthy, emotionally healthy, being happy, is being able to recognize that. Who are the people that I can go to when this is going on? Who are the people that I can go to when I want to celebrate something, when I want to talk through something, when I'm really struggling and I just want to know I'm not alone, when I need advice? Being able to recognize that there are going to be different people quite often that you go to in those different scenarios. And so when you know that you're feeling a lot, having a sense of who are those people that I can show up and just be wherever I'm at, even if we're not talking about where I'm at, but I don't have to put on a mask of being happy or being positive or whatever it might be. And there are people out there who are okay with that. It can be hard to find sometimes, but they do exist. And one of the, I think, really helpful things about social media, there's some downsides for sure, but one of the positive things about social media is that it does give us an opportunity, often inside of different types of groups, it does give us the opportunity to be able to show up in a space with people who we know, because depending on the kind of group that you're in, who we know are kind of going to get it. Like most of the people that are watching this right now probably have some things in common, even if it's just an awareness that we can't continue to deny that we might struggle with something, or on a path to trying to become healthier, happier, more whole. So finding those pockets really can go a long way, and reminding yourself that you're not alone. But being positive all the time it's actually not authentic. It's not truth, because nobody can be happy all the time. Nobody can be positive all the time. What they express may be positive. Like you may never hear them say anything that's got like a negative vibration, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist within them. They just won't allow themselves to speak it, which is not healthy. It's just not healthy. How do you amp yourself up for knowing this is a long-term thing with no end in sight? I feel like it always helps to know there's an end date, and the unknown time here is stressful. I feel you. This is, I think, part of what is so incredibly challenging, because I know for myself in the beginning, it really did seem like, okay, a few months, we'll have a better handle on this. We'll be able to get our lives kind of back to normal. That hasn't happened, and it doesn't look like anywhere really, or most places. Some places in Europe seem to be doing pretty well. But that doesn't really seem to be the case in most places. So I think one of the important things that we have to do is be able to recognize the stress that creates, that we don't know what this is going to look like. Being able to acknowledge what are the fears that come from that. Honoring, what are you afraid of losing? What are you afraid of experiencing as this continues to go on? Naming it does not make it come true, because that energy, that fear of losing it, is already inside of you. When you can name it, you're taking some of the power, some of the energy away from it. You're not bringing it into your life, you're just naming what is already present. And when we can do that, and we acknowledge that maybe we're afraid of this, then we give it the ability to process, to metabolize. Now, of course, we don't want to get stuck in all of that fear of what we might lose. So that's where healthy distraction, being able to practice lots of good self-care, making sure that you're staying connected, all of those things are really important so that you don't stay stuck in that fear. But being able to acknowledge it is important. Being able to also recognize what is still available to you, what you're not really going to lose, even if this is our lives until the beginning of next year. So it's finding some balance there, being able to honor and acknowledge the struggle, the difficulty, and also being able to acknowledge what is feeling okay, what you might be looking forward to when this is over, whenever that may be. When our lives can begin to look a little bit more like what we're used to it looking like, or what we were used to it looking like. Reminding yourself that you're going to be okay. Now, assuming that you don't end up really sick with this or something else, but that through this struggle, the struggle that we're really globally experiencing on some level, that through this, you're not alone, because we are kind of all in this together, and that as long as you're able to be relatively healthy, that you will get through this. It may take longer than we would have liked, than we hoped, but that we will get through this. And even if our lives look a little bit different on the other side, different doesn't have to be bad. Different can sometimes just be different. In fact, sometimes different can be a good thing. If you were somebody who had difficulty kind of being on your own because it made you think about too much or brought up too much feeling for you, but this has maybe allowed you to recognize that maybe there's sometimes that being on your own or not having all these things that you have to go do, that maybe that feels good. Maybe it creates a little less stress for you in your life. So being able to recognize, okay, I recognize that being busy all the time actually kind of stresses me out. This actually feels kind of nice to not have to be doing things all the time. So if you can recognize, again, you're not denying this over here, but being able to recognize what things you are maybe able to experience at this particular time that you can take forward with you when life becomes a little bit more normal again. One of the things that I've heard some people say is because our lives tend to be fairly busy, we're kind of on the go quite a bit, even if we are socializing, but we're kind of going from one thing to the next. And some people have, because they're not on the go constantly, have been having phone calls or video calls and stuff with people that normally they wouldn't spend as much time doing that with, where they're just connecting and checking in with one another. And that's certainly something that hopefully some people will take forward with them. But overall, I think the biggest thing is taking care of yourself. Just really making sure that you're practicing a lot of self-care, and with that, a lot of self-compassion. Not sure what's going on with my son's school. School at home isn't easy for him since he has some difficulties, but not sure if I feel comfortable for him to go to school. He's in high school. Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. And it's so hard to know because we're getting mixed messages about things. Working on trying to trust yourself, I think, is really important. It's not easy. especially when it comes to children. But working on practicing, trying to trust and honor yourself and what you believe is the best thing for both of you. Also work so you're not there. Yeah, that definitely makes it a lot more challenging. And this is something that I really feel like I have no answer to whatsoever, because I tend to think about all the what ifs. I tend to be pretty detail oriented, so I consider all facets. And when I have thought about this, because I have friends that have children in school, when I have thought about this, I can see both sides. Like I know that apparently some group of pediatricians, I don't know if it's actually coming from psychological people in the mental health field specifically, or if it's coming from medical field. But I know that they're saying that it's really important that children go to school. And I think that there's truth to that. But from a mental health perspective, I think we have to be really mindful of balancing what is important about that with what the potential implications may be if it's not safe. If they get sick at school, even if they're completely asymptomatic, and go home, and then mom or dad or sibling ends up sick, really sick, what is the implication going to be psychologically for that child who contracted the virus at school and brought it home? Or their teacher gets sick and dies. So I don't know what the answer is. And sorry if I've just made it even more confusing, but this is the reality of what we have to consider. Even as adults in our own lives and interactions, balancing that. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't have an answer. And I am so grateful that I am not somebody who has to come up with an answer in that regard. I can continue to do what I'm doing and try to help people navigate what they're struggling with. I am so grateful I don't have to make any decisions like that. Of course, it's important, but forcing 5-year-olds to stay separated from every other human for 7 hours every day is not going to help their mental health. I got you. Yep. And really, how is that even going to work? I just can't imagine, especially younger children. I don't know. I don't know how that. I don't know how that's going to work. I have an elementary student and I'm having the same struggle. Even if they don't get sick at school, with the precautions, it will not be school as they know it. So it's hard to know what to do. Yeah, I really hope that there is, know that kind of nationally there's a bigger conversation happening about school. I really do hope that there are some professionals in education, in mental health, in medicine, some actual people with expertise who come together and formulate, through kind of talking about all the different possibilities, formulate what the best practice is, and give us some kind of national or global, even maybe it's a global thing, but give us some guidelines, something that we can kind of make sense out of. Because trying to control children in a classroom under the best circumstances is really challenging. And the truth is, we just don't know everything that there is to know about this virus, all the things that we actually really probably need to know. It's just not available yet because this virus hasn't been around long enough. So it's really hard as a parent as an individual adult, even when we're making decisions about work, or getting together with people or whatever it might be. It's hard to know for sure. We're kind of making guesstimates about how we interpret information and what risk we feel like we're willing to take. And the reality is we also have to be recognizing that the risk that we're willing to take, we're also imposing on the people that we come into contact with, which makes it more challenging. There is definitely no easy answers with any of this. How can I create more peace within a home with so much added stress, anxiety, and fear? It's always been chaotic here, but now it's much more intense. I feel responsible to make it peaceful and calm. Well, first of all, it is not just up to you to make it peaceful and calm. The reality is everybody in a household has some aspect of responsibility in that. Even children, even young children, have responsibility for themselves and how they're choosing to show up. So you're not completely responsible for that. I will say, though, that I think that the more peace and calm we can bring to ourselves individually, the more peaceful and calm we show up. When we as individuals, and this is true for all of us, when we can show up in any situation from a more calm and peaceful place, then the energy that we're putting out there is not going to antagonize, in a way, their stressful energy. And not that it's our fault if we're also stressed, but when two stressful energies come together, it tends to create more stressful energy. So if we can work on our own peace and calm, that can influence, by how we're showing up and what our energy feels like, it can influence other people as well, to a degree. Now, it can't completely change how somebody else feels at all, but it can. If our energy is not matching their energy, then their energy can come down a little bit. Ours may increase a little bit if they're really stressed out, but it's almost like a meeting somewhere in the middle there. I think another thing that can be helpful, if we're talking about like a family setting, or really even in a work environment, being conscious about practicing things that help you stay calm, that help you feel a little bit more centered or peaceful. If the people around you are witnessing that, then they can kind of learn by your modeling of how to feel, how to practice being peaceful and calm. So, for example, being able to name that you're feeling stressed. I'm feeling really stressed right now. I need to take a deep breath, and then take a really deep breath. If it's with children, you can even say, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little stressed or anxious, or I've got a lot of energy right now, and I think I'm going to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath with me. So even something like that can go a long way. So the most important thing, you can't be responsible for having everybody else be peaceful and calm, but the more that you practice the things that you need for self-care, well, I guess self-care generally, and that can look a lot of different ways, but deep breathing, taking care of yourself, whatever that might look like, spending some time outside if that is safe and if it's available to you, even if it's a few minutes, even just getting outside and getting some fresh air can be helpful. I think, especially in a family setting as well, it is really important to have the opportunity to name what is going on, to be able to presence if somebody is feeling stressed out, if there's kids involved, if they're being really irritable or something, being able to say, acknowledge that they seem to be irritable, or even just acknowledge, like, it seems like there's something going on, or are you feeling okay? Tell me, like, are you feeling stressed out? Is there something bothering you? Even just being able to do that, and it's important that we do that with ourselves too, right? That's what this whole video so far has been about, or up until the Q&A part. Being able to do that with family members, I think, can be helpful. If you are like sitting down to a meal, being able to name, like have everybody go around and name what is something that you're maybe feeling a little stressed about. What is something that you're feeling like you're missing right now? What is something you're worried about? So giving everybody an opportunity to name that, and not feel like they can't speak it or that they should be ashamed of it or something like that. And then you can follow that up with, so name one thing that maybe feels challenging, and what is something that you feel good about today, or what is something you're looking forward to? What is something that, who did you talk to lately that you felt really good about connecting with? So creating a space like I've done here today, where people can just be wherever they're at and name wherever they're at. That goes a long way. And I would say that that's true generally and not just during this time. If you are with people that are willing to do some things that can help release some energy, whether that's breathing, going for a walk, getting some exercise in. And when I say exercise, I don't mean like an exercise routine specifically, but something that can burn some energy, whether it is doing some jumping jacks or some yoga, like a few yoga poses. After my meditation today, when I was feeling all of that energy, I did some sun salutations. Just really got that energy moving. And then a couple balancing poses to just recenter. So there's lots of different ways that we can do that. But again, you cannot be responsible for how other people are feeling. But the more that you take care of yourself, the more helpful it actually is for other people. They get to see that. They get to feel the difference in you when you are feeling more peaceful and calm. Risk and willingness. Yeah. Besides all of the worry with everything, with my son's school and COVID and everything else, my sister was just diagnosed with Bell's palsy. It is a big change in our house, and I feel helpless. I'm so sorry. That is something that I know sometimes can be temporary. I don't know if that's the case right now, but either way, I know it's scary. And just, yeah, the thing about stress and vulnerability is that it doesn't affect us, like this piece of stress doesn't affect us here. This piece of stress doesn't affect us here. This piece of stress doesn't affect us here. When we have multiple things going on, it compounds every stress that we have. So the first stress of COVID, the stress of work or financial struggles, the stress of worrying about people being sick, losing people that you love, the stress of people not following the CDC guidelines when you go out, stress about whether kids are going to go back to school, stress about like everything, right? So all of this stress layers on top of itself and compounds every other aspect of stress that is there. And that's why it is so incredibly important. I keep saying this today. I say it a lot anyway, but it's why it is so important to be able to check in with yourself and see how you're doing, so that you can take steps to help mitigate the impact that stress is having on you. It doesn't mean that the stressor is going to go away. But if you can tend to it every day or when it's present for you, then it doesn't continue to build. So that compounding way that it accumulates, if you are able to acknowledge it when it's there, do something, deep breathing or connecting or getting some physical exertion or whatever it is, if you're able to do something in a healthy way that helps mitigate some of that energy, then it can kind of go away a little bit. It's not going to go away completely, but the energy of it dissipates a little bit. So then all these other stressors are no longer compounding this, and this is no longer compounding all of these other stressors. So the more that we can check in with ourselves, the more benefit there is, not only in the moment that we're doing it, because we start practicing and our body gets more accustomed to it, but it also has an impact overall as we continue to feel more ongoing stress. So when I'm talking about this, it really isn't just something that maybe sounds good or is even just about healing in a big picture. Because healing in a big picture, getting to the top of that mountain, happens with each and every little moment that we are honoring and taking care of ourselves. And that might look different day to day or depending on what's going on or whatever, but each moment that we're able to do that is helpful. And the more that we practice that, the more accustomed our body gets to being able to feel internally what it feels like to release some of that energy. So I think I've gone through all the comments. Oh. I joined a trauma-centered yoga class just since COVID. It has helped a lot with awareness, sensation, choice, and of course, self-care. That's awesome. That's really awesome. I think that's a great idea. So a trauma-centered yoga class. I think yoga right now is I always think yoga is good for our bodies, no matter what our bodies have been through. I also think that yoga is actually really good for our mind and our psychological well-being. During this time in particular, I think that that benefit is even more significant. A trauma-centered yoga class is definitely really helpful too for people that have trauma histories. And I think that that's true generally as well. But really, I think any yoga, as long as you're mindful of how you're feeling and take care of yourself through it, I think can be helpful as well. So yeah, I don't know if that's like something anybody can join, or is that something that is just like maybe in your local community? Because I know that there's a lot of local yoga places and stuff like that are doing their classes online instead of in person. But that's not necessarily something that would be available to people all over. But if it is something that's available all over, feel free to share that information if you want here. And if you don't have access to it, you can share it once the video is posted. You can share it in the comments there as well. I'm actually going to start, I think, doing some yoga online with a class type setting because I feel like I've missed that. I really, for me, when I do yoga, I actually really do like going to a studio as long as it's a nice studio. Like the energy is nice. I really do like going to a yoga studio because the energy around, right? It makes a difference. It has an impact on how we end up feeling. The energy around us has an impact on how we feel, good and bad. So having a class type setting, virtual class type setting where you can practice some yoga or meditation, I think can be really beneficial. So thank you for bringing that up. All right. Well, does anybody have any other questions? I'm happy to answer. Yeah. Yeah, the energy, it is different in person. There's certainly a difference, but the doing virtual stuff, especially when you can kind of see what's happening with different people and people are kind of engaged in the same thing, you can definitely pick up on that. It feels quite different. I just did a Zoom call yesterday with a group that I've been leading, and we've been connecting where I've been doing lives in there, but not being able to see everybody. And yesterday, we were able to, many of us came together on a live Zoom call, and it definitely feels quite different. Feels a lot nicer. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me for this moment. Please, please, please be gentle with yourself. Honor how you're feeling, no matter what that is. Practice healthy distraction and other healthy coping mechanisms. Stay connected in whatever way that works for you. Practice a lot of self-compassion. This is a really, really important time to be aware of any judgment that you have for yourself, whether it's how you're coping, that you feel like you should be getting more done, that you should feel more grateful than you do. Whatever it is, really notice any self-judgment and really practice letting go of that by practicing self-compassion. So thank you for joining me. Have a beautiful rest of your day and a beautiful weekend, and I will look forward to seeing you all very soon.